This is the week one recap. So, one thing that stuck out to me so far is well, actually, so I guess in the video I'll probably show. I set it up. I think at days 2, 5, and 7 or something like that. And so this is the difference between me at day 2 and day 5 and day 7 for each of the different poses. And one of the things that struck me as I was editing this is that it's actually not so clear visually how much I'm making a difference here. And I guess what I mean by that is that if you look at the actual, if you look at the video, it doesn't look like much change has happened. I think maybe on one of the side splits or on one of the front splits, maybe on one of the front splits, I look a little deeper, but I don't think it's not a huge difference so far. I will say one of the differences that I have noticed is that it's a lot easier to do the work. And what I mean by that is that even though the positions aren't necessarily getting a whole bunch deeper, it isn't quite as, it doesn't feel quite as taxing to actually do the stretching. Normally the splits is a little intense. Yeah. Normally the splits are a little intense. But here, after doing them for a week, I don't feel quite that same level of intensity. Even if I'm kind of tight, it's starting to feel a little bit more like a normal stretch. Whereas something like maybe a forward fold, generally speaking, is pretty low key to do. Not super intense, not very stressful, even if I'm really tight. It just doesn't quite have that same feeling of like, I don't know how to explain this, of just like something being intense about the stretch. The splits definitely do that. Other similar stretches that do that are stretches like leg behind the head or you can definitely see that I seem to be a little bit more relaxed in some of these, in some of the videos. I do seem to be going slightly deeper. One thing that doesn't show up on the footage, because I cut it to try and be the same amount of time, is that I actually didn't even realize this, that for a good amount of the stretches, I'm actually stretching a lot longer the uh, later on in the challenge. So like for one of the things, I think on day 2 for a lot of the splits and all that stuff, I was stretching for like 15, 20 seconds. Probably because that was kind of all I could take, all I could really tolerate. Uh, on day 7, I think some of them were 45, 60 seconds. I'm not particularly timing it out in any way. I'm just kind of doing it uh, free form, just doing it free form. And yet, it seems clear on some level that I am not quite as uncomfortable doing these stretches because it's going longer. So there's that. The progress has been slow, that's for sure. I guess a week of stretching for, I mean, gosh, even it's just not actually that much stretching when it gets down to it. I'm warming up for a few minutes. I'm doing a little bit of the stretching. I'm going to say it's maybe 5 minutes practicing the splits in total. 5, 6 minutes. It's just not that much, actually. And so I guess it kind of makes sense that it would be slow. But it is very tolerable. It's a very doable amount. And I normally don't practice my splits this much. Since it's easier to find time to do the yoga challenge, since it's only 15-ish minutes, I actually have found myself making use of time that I otherwise wouldn't have thought to use this way. So, like a lot of times when I'm working, I'll have a 1 hour break. Normally, I would just think, oh, that's too short to do yoga. And I don't really have anything. Yeah, I don't normally do yoga for only 15 or 20 minutes. And so now, since I'm trying to do this every day, I've actually found myself using this time sometimes to do the yoga. And so that's kind of cool. I feel like I end up doing a lot more yoga because of that. Because now, since I've been doing 15 minutes every day, what is that? An hour and a half over the course of a week. And so that I otherwise would not have done. Um, and I guess maybe I could have found one, probably would be maybe even slightly less hard to do one, 1 hour yoga or two 1 hour yogas instead of 15 minutes every day. Uh, but it's really quite easy to fit 15 minutes in somewhere. that seems really, really possible, really doable, and it actually feels kind of good. Um, oh, okay. I got two more points. So one thing is that the first few days were definitely the hardest to do. Um, I felt like there was no visible progress. It was just hard. I even feel like I kind of regressed a little bit. That could be because I was stretching, or that could have just been random fluctuation in how tight I was. It did get like colder. Um, but that was definitely really hard because I had no habit set up, and I was just trying to do the stretching, and then I was getting worse, and it didn't really feel very motivating. But after a few days, noticing a difference, particularly in how my hands felt and how strong my hands felt, um, it's been very motivating actually, and I feel like it's a very good, it's very good value time spent, a really good bang for my buck, so to speak. That I can do 15 minutes of working out a day, and like my hand stuff is almost completely gone. It came back a little bit. I was playing some hard DDR and kind of I think overworked it a little bit, so it's a little bit on one hand, but even then it's a lot less than it normally is. And for only 15 minutes a day, for it to kind of fix this problem, that seems really, really, like really well time spent. It feels like time well spent. And so that's actually been really motivating. I was thinking a little bit about the walking challenge from last year that I did. That one didn't feel like quite as good a value. It didn't feel like I was particularly using my time in the best way possible. I did enjoy the walks, but near the end, when I was doing like 2.5 hours of walking, that didn't really feel like I was getting 2 hours of solid time in. Um, Different than like when I biked a whole bunch. I would go on, 2-3 hour bike rides. And I actually really enjoyed those. So that's kind of interesting. I don't know exactly how to use that going forward, but it does seem like finding something that is right. I was talking in the intro video, I talked about the finding a good medium between doable and impactful. And it kind of feels like finding something that has a high ratio of that is very doable and also very impactful seems to be pretty motivating, I guess. It really feels rewarding in the sense that it's very reinforcing. It really makes me feel like doing it more, I guess. Whereas the walking, I felt like seemed like a good idea, but I didn't actually feel like the effects were that noticeable. And like cardiovascularly, I guess I could walk better, but like again, that it didn't really like show up in quite the same way. It also had a lot of downsides. It took a lot of time. I got blisters. It was kind of uncomfortable. Um, this one really is not that. In fact, it doesn't feel like very much. It just kind of helps me wake up, helps me feel better. All this stuff. This, I think I did a much better job choosing something this time. And now I want to think about it a little bit. What I would do next time. Um, I guess it would be hard, but to try and find something, I guess I'm just thinking it's probably important to try and find something that does a lot in the sense that it has a very immediate or I was going to say maybe immediate feedback, not necessarily immediate improvement, but at least you feel like something is changing right away. Um, and yeah, that seems important. So let me think. I'm trying to think if there's anything in the videos that I could talk about. Oh, I forgot to talk about the handstands. The handstands have been going really well. That really is somewhere where I've made huge amounts of progress. And I don't know why particularly. Maybe it's because it's kind of a skill thing as opposed to a strength thing. Like, I don't think I'm much stronger in a week of doing this. But since it's kind of a skill, like a coordination thing, but yeah, my handstands have gotten a lot better. As you guys can see in the first video, I don't think I get any handstands at all. I do a few frog jumps, which is where you jump with both your legs up. and the few frog jumps go okay, but it's not. And in a matter of a few days, I start to kind of, they just, like, I think they've just gotten better every day. They've just gotten more stable, they've gotten longer. And one of them, uh, in one of them, my handstand, I think I held it for almost 25 seconds, which is super solid. Um, I, that was pretty good. So that's pretty cool. Handstands definitely seem like they're going well. The stretching seems to be a little bit harder. I imagine it just, I imagine physically that's just not quite, that's going to take longer to unlock, if you will, doing the splits. And if you were to try and do this and you've never done the splits, my guess is a month is going to have almost no impact. I would, that's my guess, you know, or at least, especially with something like this. I think if, I'm just thinking about this now, if you wanted to do, you random viewer wanted to do a stretching challenge, I would choose a stretch that you're somewhat familiar with, and yet it's kind of easy in a way. So like forward fold, or forward fold, wide legged, something like that. I think something that's really intense, like the splits, leg behind the head. Like if you're just like, oh, I'm gonna practice putting my leg behind my head, and you're super inflexible, I don't think that's gonna. I don't think there's gonna be enough progress there to make it feel worth it. There will be progress, I think, but some of these things, somehow, the deeper the stretch, it seems harder to do. Um, but yeah, so I got a sweet handstand in. Got some sweet handstands. I'm still going, still working hard, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. Cool. Hopefully this is enough. All right, Breakthrough Crew. Uh, Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.